Joining me now, Matthew Torbit, ex-Labour advisor and political commentator. Good morning, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, David. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks very much. When you look at those 3 New Year messages, what do you think?
I think the one thing about Nigel, as much as he's currently tapping into something people are annoyed about, there's a lot of negativity. And I think with regards to politics, negative campaigns don't always win. You want to see positivity, what his vision for the future may be.
Well, tell me about the negativity.
Well, that we're in a period of national decline, I think the other thing is Brexit's still a little bit of a hot potato, I think, for lots of people. I think there isn't many people that feel better off after 14 years. The pandemic's going to have played a part in that. Brexit has also played a part. And I think if you look at public polling, lots of people sort of say either they wish they voted Remain or they don't know if Brexit was a good idea. I think he's the one that looks most well put together, and I think people like that sort of thing in this country. And I think also it's quite an interesting message to do it from Blenheim Palace compared to the other two. But I think, truth be told, Joe Bloggs on the street probably won't be watching any of these. I think he's speaking to those already that are politically engaged and to cause stories within Westminster more than anything else.
What did you make of Kemi Badenoch's speech?
Well, I don't really make much of Kemi Badenoch's speeches anywhere, to be honest with you. I think the only current light at the end of the tunnel for Keir Starmer is that he might be terrible, but she's worse than him at the moment.
Well, that's hardly an accolade, is it?
No, quite. But if he's gonna need something to hold on at the moment, and that might be it. Because there isn't really any proper opposition in this country.
So can I just talk about Keir Starmer? He is the Prime Minister. He is the one that's meant to have a vision for this country and where we're going. The way that was shot, it looked like a student had shot it on a phone. It was badly composed. He looks dishevelled. He is the Prime Minister. The shirt is badly fitting. He looks like he's in the doctor's waiting room.
Yeah, I think this is supposed to be looking like number 10. I don't know if it is or it isn't. And in fact, it looks like my nan's spare room in a way.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't been there, but yes.
I think for me, it reminds me a little bit of the Jeremy Corbyn stuff when David Cameron said as Prime Minister, put a tie on, to sing the national anthem, look properly sort of thing. I think people, the way Nigel's come across in his suit is the way people would always want you to look. And there's a little bit of the David Cameron call me Dave sort of thing of, I'm a casual, normal person. And, I don't wear a tie all the time. And I think if you're representing the country and sending the message of the country, you want them looking prim and proper.
Well, I would agree with that. And also, just in terms of the front page of the Times this morning, if you are just waking up, poll gives Starmer a New Year headache. And most voters see Labour as incompetent, dishonest, unsuccessful, and think Starmer will fail at all 6 of the milestones that he's actually set his own government, according to this YouGov polling for the Times. Now, Keir Starmer is in a very difficult position here. He says this is going to be the year of change. We've done all the hard work. We all amalgamate around each other, and this is where we build this country from the grassroots.
I mean, there's a bit of this poll that makes me think, is it really a surprise? I think this is to assume that Keir Starmer was ever popular. I spent during the general election 6 weeks on the road like lots of Labour people, and there was no love for us whatsoever. I think, unfortunately, for the Conservatives, they were disliked more than us because they were very unpopular 14-year incumbent government. And it was a bit similar. I never saw the same media reporting, but I think a lot of people, they didn't come back to Labour. They basically lent us their vote. So I think it's been a bizarre electoral strategy to make these unpopular decisions around winter fuel, around the farmers' inheritance tax, allowing yourself to be in a position where you look like you were going to pay the waspy women when you never were, but you used the sort of photo ops for electoral gain at the time. And I think for the small amount of money used that they would raise, you're looking at £1.5 billion. You could have put corporation tax by 1% and you'd bring in 3 times that amount. You wouldn't have the same optics of a load of city boys down at Westminster protesting in the barbers and whatever else. And if there's one thing in this country we know older people do, they vote. They will go out and vote in their droves. So And I think even something that I'd support in principle, the idea of putting up VAT on private schools, or even if they were to, do something like remove the charitable status, it seems an odd priority to be 6 months in and be doing this sort of stuff. And it seems very ideological rather than, I don't think there's anybody at home going, I hope they put up the tax on private schools. We've been waiting for this for years. It isn't what people want at the moment.
No, and also the fact is actually their numbers don't make any sense. They don't stack up in the slightest. Bridget Phillipson says that actually the middle classes are welcoming VAT on private schools. No, they're not. That's a complete fabrication. But also, you're right, these are all own goals, very early own goals in a new government. And of course, the Daily Mail front page is so much for cutting our energy bills, the energy price cap going up. You've got the private school issue rumbling on the Daily Telegraph. And of course, yet again, the Treasury is wrong. They say that actually those schools will only put up fees by, say, 10%, but actually the schools are putting them up between 15 and 20%. And that means that pupils will leave those private schools, will go into the state system where there aren't the places. And I don't think any of this has been thought through. And you're right, it's ideological.
I suppose it will remain to be seen. The government seems to think that only 0.1% of the school population will be those that where schools will go out of business and people will have to go to the state educated sector. I'd hope certainly that the numbers had been done. I think there's the potential for pinch points in certain areas of the country where there isn't potentially the numbers to cope. But I think we'll be okay on this. And I think if you're so desperate to get your child the shortcut in life that is private education, I think, there's nothing wrong with it. I do find myself in a period of hypocrisy. I had a friend the other day saying, would you send your kids if you had kids? And I said, I don't know. I think ideologically and for social mobility, I think it doesn't work. It's wrong. It promotes inequality. But I know, having worked with people in Westminster who are privately educated, it is a shortcut through life, and you want your kids to have the best in life, obviously.
But it's about choice. But it's also about choice, isn't it? Because those parents also pay their taxes, which fund the state education system, and in fact, they're paying twice.
No, yeah, I suppose that's the point, but they're also making the choice to do that in a way. You make the choice whether you want to use private anything, healthcare or transport or whatever else, and I suppose that's up to whoever. I think that there could be a greater emphasis on private schools putting forward more bursaries that could afford.
But they already do, and actually that's going to be one of the biggest casualties of this, is because as the number of pupils drops going into private schools, it also means their revenue drops. That means there will be fewer bursaries going to those children from poorer households. So that is going to be one aspect of that. The other thing is many of those independent schools open their sports facilities for the use of the local community. That will also stop. I don't think the government understands any of that.
Possibly not, and I don't know how many of them were privately educated, what the experience is. I certainly don't know, I wouldn't claim to know, and I think therefore you have to have experts or those that have been. I suppose the other argument to that would be they normally have very good sports facilities. Does it show that we don't invest in our own enough for everybody to have great sporting facilities regardless of private or state education? And I suppose with regards to the bursaries, I think this is maybe sometimes the problem with private anything. There has to be a profit, and if education becomes a business, which it partly is with university and private education, become a business model, people are always going to miss out, and there's got to be money made.
Do you think Starmer can hang on?
No, I said on election that I'd give him 2 years. I think Reform are in the ascendancy. We're lucky this time round in if those elections that will go ahead in 2025, it's quite a high tide mark for the Tories and not for us. There'll be more emphasis on Reform doing better against the Tories. But if Anas Sarwar doesn't win in Scotland in 2026, which I don't think he will do after all the campaigning he's done and how long the SNP have been in charge, and we lose Wales for the first time ever in over 100 years, I think the knives will come out for the right of the party and you'll start to see movement against it.
Matthew, really good to talk to you. Happy New Year. Thank you very much for joining me on this New Year's Day. Matthew Torbit there.